Everybody, and what are we here for today? The Valve Live. Here you go. It's our new live stream series, and we're focusing on men's interests, their sort of health and well-being. And today is our first ever session, and our first ever person. Here he is. It's Michael Woods. He's the first ever deaf man in the UK and Europe, and he's first ever climbed Mount Everest. So welcome, Michael.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to talking about my journey.
Brilliant. So Michael was really successful. There's 7 summits all over the world, but he's managed so far to climb 4. So 1 in Russia, 1 in Africa, 1 in Asia, and 1 in South America. Impressive. So is he satisfied with all of those 4? Absolutely not. He wants to achieve 7 out of 7. So today we're going to have an in-depth conversation about different topics. We're not talking solely about Everest, and that's a difficult conversation at the moment because he's full on as a contract. We'll talk about it briefly and how Everest was, but we won't go into depth. But the aim really is to kind of focus on Michael. Who is he? His journey so far, how he became mountaineer, lessons he learnt from it, and how good his mental resilience was in those sort of journeys he took. We're looking at, how he combated them and all the challenges he faced along the way. So if you're really excited to ask him questions, please do. You can do that directly. You can call us in via BSL. That's absolutely fine. And, if you want to comment, that's also equally as good at making comments, and we will ask him just for you. So my first question, Michael, I think is a simple one. Who are you? I feel like you've just kind of popped out of the blue and all of a sudden you've taken over the world and now everyone knows who you are. I think you probably are the most talked about deaf person in the UK, Europe, even the world maybe.
I know, it's been crazy. And since I got back from Everest, my life's changed quite a lot. So I'm born in Liverpool, profoundly deaf, sign language user. And my father had 2 children. And so, yeah, I'm one of his deaf sons.
So now everyone knows you. Obviously, they know your achievements and they know your achievements linked to mountaineering. But I think really I'd kind of like to know more about your life, your childhood, growing up, and how it navigated your journey to now. So you say you grew up in Liverpool within the deaf community. What was your school like? Did you go to hearing school, deaf school, and your education?
Yep, so when I was born, I was profoundly deaf and I went to my first school. I was only 18 months old, sorry, because that was to help me develop early. And then I moved to 4 different schools throughout my childhood because my parents wanted the best for me. So they tried to encourage me in oral education, but I was very stubborn and I wanted to sign. So thinking about how my life sort of progressed, obviously I got involved in the deaf community and, my journey's been really weird. It's not sort of a standard. I feel quite unique.
Okay, so you learned BSL at a later age. How old were you roughly then?
So yes, I started signing when I was born, but when I was in school, I wasn't allowed. So it was very focused on oral education. So when I started properly signing, I think I was about 10, so I was a bit later. And it was really from that sort of became who I am today. So I think that's how I built my resilience as well, because I went through a little bit of difficulty with my childhood.
Okay, so saying your younger years were quite difficult for you in terms of education or connections and making friends and being sociable?
Yeah, both. It's difficult because obviously I was the only deaf person and I had a lot of hard of hearing people around me, but they were sort of more that oral education and I really wanted to sign, which I couldn't. I couldn't lip read very well. So it was almost like I was in that wrong school and I just left me behind in education, really. So one of the school teachers came along and they spotted that, I wasn't in the right situation and they took me out and they advised that I went in a mainstream school with other deaf people. So it was from there really that I sort of began to catch up with my education.
Okay, that's fantastic. So can you tell me what it was like when you were small? What were you like? Were you shy? What was your sort of personality growing up?
Yeah, so obviously now, I look very confident, but growing up, I was very, very naive. I was a very quiet person and I never really I wasn't sort of crazy or energetic or anything like that. I was very withdrawn. So I think I probably started to change a little bit in later teenage years, and that was because of a bit of bullying, because I was not fitting in. And it wasn't until I left school that I was able to become more assertive.
So I'm just thinking, in terms of your deafness then, how did you cope with that in terms of, being bullied? Was it a bit like persevering, losing your confidence and kind of waiting for that time for school to finish? And, you think, what, I'm going to show you who I am. What did it look like for you?
Yeah, it was like, I had to just keep everything in. I had to sort of just push it all down, really. I thought that was just normal life. So it wasn't until I was older, probably 18 even, I met my first partner, and, still with her for 18 years. And that was sort of how I began to really look inward and find out who I am. Why is it that I'm shy or, too passive? And I started to stand up for myself and showed the bullies that actually I'm not accepting it. I can achieve these things. So that's how I sort of started becoming a little bit more assertive and achieve what I wanted to achieve.
Wow, okay. So I know you've obviously talked about school and your character, and then obviously you left school. So was that then your dream then to become a mountaineer? What happened there?
No, not at all. So really, I hated sports when I was younger. I never liked being involved in anything sporty. We obviously had a football, like a fun, friendly game, but I wasn't involved in sort of team sports or competitiveness. I hated it because I wasn't very good anyway. So some running and different sports like that, didn't like it at all. I was very into gaming, computing at home, and I was a very indoor person. I was never really out. So it really changed when I was 25. That's when I became more outdoorsy.
So interesting, from what you explained, obviously from your childhood so far, changed to gaming, staying at home. Would you kind of say you were an introvert? Is that your type of personality, would you say? Because really it says, is Michael Woods an introvert or an extrovert? What do you reckon?
Yes, I was more introverted at that time. Now I'm probably much more extroverted, because I think I want to show people now, if you are introverted, you can just be yourself. And I think what I went through in my early life and what I know that that's like, I want the younger generation to see what I've been through and know that I've experienced the same, and I want a better future for them, and to sort of look inwards at themselves.
Yeah, that's really, really powerful. Yeah, that's brilliant. So let's take away school. We look at a career now. What was your first job?
So I think I was only 12 or 13. I had a newspaper round. And that was really my first job. And I just wanted the money. I quit 2 weeks later, because it was hard work going to all those different houses. I was like, nah, I've had enough of this. So then when I was 16, I got involved like a work experience. That was from school. So again, I did another 2 weeks of work experience, and I had to go and sort of work as a chef. And that was because my parents had really sort of encouraged me to do something, because they wanted me to do something for my future. But really, it wasn't my dream.
So what was your dream at that time?
I didn't really have one, to be honest. I didn't really think about the future too much.
Did you feel worried that you kind of didn't have a dream? Did you feel lost or thinking about, well, what is my future look like? Or did you just think at some point I will find my way?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think at that time, I never thought about what my future would be like.
But were you worried about that? Or did you kind of think to yourself, what, there'll be something for me in the future. I'll find my way. I'll get there.
No, I mean, really, I think I was just thinking about the here and now. I was gaming. That's what I was focused on. And again, through that, I became a competitive person. So it was best, like, I wanted to be the top gamer. So that was it for me. But at that time, I didn't really sort of think about the future. I was still young, of course, as well.
That's really interesting. It seems like you're the type of person who just likes to live day by day. Would that be a fair comment? Not jumping too far ahead. Yeah. So obviously you said you were a chef. Did that carry on, or what happened next?
So when I was 18, I left. Hang on.
18 different jobs. Oh my goodness. You're already 36. How is that even possible? So from 16 to 36, you've had like one new job every 1 year? How is that even possible?
I know. I like a new job. I like challenge. I get bored really easily. I like a new challenge. I like to learn something new. And yeah, just learn some skills. Like I say, just get bored easy.
Do you remember all 18 jobs? That's the challenge.
Most of them. Yeah. So my first job, obviously I was postman, like a newspaper boy. Then I had a chef job. Then I was a youth worker. I worked in media for a bit. I like creating videos. HGV driver. And then I was a BSL tutor. I was a support worker. And then I was a manager of that team. And I think that's about 10 so far. So then I started sort of looking inward and thought, actually, I want to be my own boss. I don't want to work for another person. So starting from that was where I set up my own business, printing clothing. And I tried it, but it didn't work out. Then I was trading. Oh God, there's so many.
You're almost there, Michael. Keep going.
One, I did gardening for a bit. And I think that was the thing that I was most passionate about because it was outdoorsy. And also I really enjoyed being out in nature. And that was what I really sort of connected with. And it helped me be physically fit as well. So that helped me more, whereas mostly I thought a lot of the jobs just sort of going through it. So I think during COVID was when I was gardening and I lasted about 4 years.
So is that your own business now, gardening? Was it been successful?
Yeah, really successful. And I think it was one of the best gardeners in Liverpool. You know, I had so many text messages and I think I had 200 customers at that time. But it wasn't sort of when I started with my goal to climb Everest, I sort of dropped my business a bit because I really wanted to focus 100%. I wanted to get my training and unfortunately I just couldn't commit to the job. So all of the customers had to look for a new gardener. Yeah.
Wow, that is interesting. There's such an array, 18 different jobs, different skills, experiences that you brought along the way. That's fantastic. So you really have taken those, haven't you? Because they've kind of made you who you are. So I just imagine when you're at the mountain, you know, that's for you, isn't it? That's for you thinking, you know, I match outside. I like being outside. That's part of me. Is that 25? Did you start doing that?
So at 25, that's when I sort of looked inwards and I thought, actually, I need to change my life. Before that, I was very an indoorsy person. So in 2015, my first daughter was born. And that's when I started to reflect a little bit more. You know, I wanted to be a good father, a good role model. You know, I can't live my life on gaming. You know, it's not healthy food I was eating. I was just lots of takeaways. And my well-being wasn't good. You know, it sort of fluctuated a lot. So it was that point, really, that I thought, I've got to aim for something. Because I was 25, I had to have an aim, a purpose. So I started going to the gym. But again, I just found it really boring, really repetitive. You know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it was not something I was passionate about, but I went because I thought it's going to help me get fit, help me lose weight. But to be honest, the gym really made me started going outside more because that's how I then sort of became a mountain climbing and mountaineering. Then I became hooked on it. So that's when I sort of decided, yeah, Everest is my target.
So what was your first mountain? Do you remember that one?
So my first one ever was Snowdon. Before that, I'd never even gone out for a walk over a hill, you know. I just went straight to Snowdon. It was, you know, the highest mountain in Wales.
That's kind of the same as me, really. I think back in February, a group of us, me and my friend, just randomly thought, you know what, we're going to go to Snowdon. And we decided to go on Valentine's Day. So that's what we did. We all agreed. We got there, got to Wales. You know, we had the wrong shoes, the wrong clothing. Honestly, it was crazy. But once we'd got there and up there and coming down was hell. There was ice everywhere. It was slippery. And I learned a lot just from doing that. So it made me realise after Snowdon, I thought, actually, I felt a bit inspired. I thought, you know what? Wow, I did that. So I assumed you had to come up with the same sort of feeling.
Yeah, no, really similar. So again, it was really hell for me as well, Snowdon, especially when I started. In the back of my head, I was like, I wish I'd never come. Wish I'd never done that. But I'm here now, so I've got to carry on. And it wasn't until I got to the peak where I actually thought, actually, I feel really good. I feel like I've achieved something. And plus the view, of course, the hard work getting there, just felt like really rewarding and something that I actually really enjoyed. And again, the gym sort of, I felt like something I was pushing myself to do, but this I really enjoyed. So that's how I sort of started wanting more of that.
Yeah, I really understand how that felt. So could we just go back a minute and obviously talking about looking into yourself a bit more when you got to the age of 25, you know, you became a father. and you kind of thought to yourself, I need to be better. I need to be a better man, so to speak, a better father, a better role model, so on. I'm kind of thinking, how hard was that for you at that time to make that transition from being, those bad habits, the gaming, or negative mindset that you may have had at that time, to then transition to become that better person, to become that better man, to have a more positive mindset? How hard was that transition period for you?
Yeah, it was really hard because, again, those were habits that I've had for many years. You can't change that overnight. So you had to almost fit it in with the new lifestyle. So it was a slow change. I still kept going to the gym regularly because a few of our friends had gone there, so they helped to motivate me. I think if I was by myself, I probably just would have given up. But yeah, my friends helped, and I was trying to cut down on the unhealthy food. I was trying to eat a bit better, and I found that eating better helped my mindset as well, and it helped my well-being because then when I went walking, I felt like my mind was clear, and it really helped a lot. Because obviously I did have mental health struggles before, and when I was walking, it just felt like my mental health difficulties really reduced. And obviously I really enjoyed it. So I thought, actually, that's something really, really worth me carrying on. It's the best lifestyle for me to have. So it was sort of like all of that together helped me to break the habits, reducing my gaming, eating healthier, getting outdoors. So those gradual changes just helped. I don't really game at all anymore. I'm not interested. I want to go out and do things. And I think obviously through age as well, you kind of grow out of those habits.
And I think responsibility too, isn't it? You've got your daughter, and I think, like you said, you want to be a good role model for her. So, maybe some people who are watching today feel the sort of same way you did, back in that time when you're younger, looking on and thinking, actually, I'm not happy with myself. I'm not happy with the lifestyle I have. I want to do better. I want to be a better person. What sort of advice could you give to the viewers who are watching?
If you felt like I do, or if you feel like I did, I'd really, really advise you to get out, go for a walk. It doesn't have to be a hill or a mountain. Just going out for a walk would be a good start. It will improve your well-being a lot. And I think that's my advice.
Okay, so if some people find walking boring, or, what is there an alternative? Do you have an alternative advice?
No, my advice is just to go for a walk.
Okay, I just think we've got a first caller in. Let's have a look and see what question they've got for you. Very brave caller. Let's go. We're excited to talk to you, Michael. Better.
Hello. Hi. I have a question. So you were talking about your business and the different jobs that you had, and you went to print clothing. Was that deaf clothing company? Is that right? No, because I noticed up in Liverpool, there's lots of sort of deaf people setting up businesses, printing clothing, and it was like 2013. One of them was called Deaf Printing, and I think it was at my festival, at Deaf Expo. Sorry, can you just say that again? So you were setting up a business in Liverpool at that time. There seemed like quite a few, and it looked like a good service for deaf people to encourage them to set up printing. So what was it like at that time? Yeah, so my first business, when I set it up, I did find it challenging because I didn't really know how to set up a business, to access information. Really, I just sort of had to get on with it. I like a new challenge.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's how I started.
Okay, so, the support though, if you've got no idea what to do, who supported you back then? Who made you help? Who helped you?
Nobody.
Wow, fantastic.
So I set up my business, and, after the first one, I learned from the second one, learned from the third one, and just improved from there.
Ah, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that was lovely to have a caller. Fantastic. So you can see it, watch people have your own questions. Please feel free. It can be something that we haven't yet spoken about, an idea of yourself, something you'd like to talk to Michael about. Please do join us. It's your opportunity now to talk with, the most famous deaf man in the UK currently.
Definitely.
How do you feel? Because it just seems like, before, like you said, your sort of character, was a little bit just, kept on going. And all of a sudden your life has changed and you're climbing Everest, you've done the 4 mountains, and your life is just absolutely blown up. Your attention, you've got full world attention now. How are you managing with that?
To be honest, I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting this level, because when I was younger, I always was worried about my image, and I started sort of promoting myself because it helped me getting funding. And really, I had a low self-esteem. So it wasn't until sort of I'd finished the mountain, it was got home, I was really, really overwhelmed because it kind of just went viral and it was a really new world for me to deal with. So it was a big change in my life to deal with that because I wasn't expecting it at all. It's just like it happened. And also, my email inbox was just flooded. So it's like, some of those people that still talk to me every day, some people that are learning level 6, they're talking about me. It's amazing.
That's amazing. So how do you adjust then? How do you adjust this whole new lifestyle, this attention that you're receiving?
So at the start, I felt like, whoa, hang on. I sort of decided to take a step back from social media for a few weeks because, it was really draining me. And then it wasn't until I sort of I went back bit by bit to get used to it and sort of fit in with this new lifestyle, little bit by little bit. And it was a slower, adapting. So, but really I've got to learn, like, I can't escape it now. Everybody knows me now. So that's it.
So I have to ask then, do you enjoy the attention now?
To be honest, I'm just a normal person, like me, like you. Just because I'm sort of the first deaf British person, I'm not like, oh, look at me, look at me. Like, it's still strange. I'm still a normal person. I'm just Michael Woods. So, I'm not sort of trying to big up myself or anything. I'm the same as you, really.
Yeah, I really understand that. But everyone is so proud of you and what you've achieved. We really are. We're so glad you've come back safe and you're in good shape and you're fit and healthy. But so before we keep going about this conversation, I kind of want to go back a little bit and talk about, follow your timeline of your growing up. So we talked about all of your 18 careers. We talked about mountaineering, so to speak, in Snowdon. When was then your next, serious, gain from mountain? When did you really discover that you loved it?
So, yeah, great question. So obviously 2014, that's when my daughter was born. I really wanted to aim towards something. And I sort of started to do hiking a little bit, but I wasn't really serious at that time. I was just sort of normally going out, doing things like this for my son. Then in 2019, he was deaf as well, like me. And I know that the world can be really difficult, especially for, a deaf young person. And I thought I didn't want my son to go through what I've gone through. So I wanted to show him and my daughter, obviously, what it can be like, that actually deaf people can achieve anything. So I wanted to sort of achieve something with mountaineering because I was really interested. And at that time, there was no sort of, world record for mountaineering. Since then, there's obviously been, 2 or 3 or 4. But I was really, really intrigued by that because there was nothing here in Britain. So I thought, hey, why not? It could be me. So it was that really made me think, learn how to do it, learn the different skills, and Everest was my goal.
Wow, I have to ask then. So do you remember that moment when you thought to yourself, right, this is it. I want to climb Everest. Do you remember that exact moment? Can you tell me more about it?
Yep, it was the 14th of August, 2016. Almost 2 weeks, that's it. So it was 10 years ago. I said, that's it. I'm going to climb Everest. So it was me and my 2 friends, Todd and Sean. We sort of started getting really interested in climbing mountains. So it was us 3, and we'd already sort of wanted to climb all the mountains. We'd planned it all. We'd planned the first and the second one. And we went to Ben Nevis, which is the highest mountain in Scotland. And we also went to Scafell Pike. But really, we'd already sort of planned the second and third before we'd even come down the first one. But I thought, oh, Ben Nevis is actually the highest in the UK, but what's the highest in the world? It's Everest. And so I contacted my two friends and I thought, oh, well, why don't we do Everest? And we're like, yeah, let's aim for it. And it was weird because that was my first mountain that I'd climbed. And again, before that, I'd not really, had high altitude experience. I had the wrong clothing. And I thought, oh, let's aim for Everest.
You thought it was going to be easy, did you?
It wasn't until I got home and I started learning about it, researching and thinking, oh gosh, there's actually a lot to this. Like, whew, that's going to take a lot of commitment. And so that's when I, became a little bit more serious.
Okay, so we've got another caller. So let's just see who this is. Hello.
Hello. So it's good to see you and well done as well. I want to congratulate you.
Yeah, so sorry. So you've been climbing and mountaineering for a long time now, and you got to the top. Amazing, congratulations, and obviously and you're deaf as well. So you managed to achieve that, and it's deaf power, and we're so proud and really well done for you. But I was kind of thinking, have you got any more sort of plans in the future? More around the world. Maybe the highest. What's sort of your views on that?
Yeah, great question. So Mount Everest was the highest, and next I want to do K2. So that's the highest mountain in the world. It's also the most dangerous. So that's my aim. And the 7 summits. So I've got 3 more left. So I've done the 4. So I want to complete them all.
Wow, well done. That's impressive. Yeah, you get, have you got used to it, learning how to, been practicing and will improve. And I think it's fantastic. Really well done. Good luck for the future.
Thank you.
That's it. That's my question. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you so much for calling. Anyone else, please, you're welcome to call at any time and ask the questions. Right, I'm just going to have a look at some comments now. We've got some comments that are given to you. So firstly, I wanted to ask, were you teaching young deaf people with disabilities, and will you teach them how to learn how to climb? Is that something that you could do?
Yes. So my vision is to support young deaf children with disabilities or any, deafness, because I really want to show children, to inspire them that no matter what your deafness, your disability, that you can achieve it. So I'm a qualified guide. Once I've qualified as a guide, I'd like to take groups out and teach them for mountaineering and for schools as well to achieve their dreams. It doesn't have to be mountaineering, but it could be anything.
Yeah, so it means going forward then you kind of see your career, changing and becoming, linked to mountaineering. That's it, teaching it. Maybe a book. Are you planning to write a book? Is that something we've heard about your journey and, more mountains that you may want to explore? Is that the plan? Is that what you're doing?
Yes. So my dream has been a career in mountaineering. So obviously before that, my 18 different jobs, they were all, learning skills and all career, but really I always wanted to sort of find a career that related to my hobbies. So with mountaineering, I feel like I've sort of got that dream now. I do motivational speaking. I want to inspire children, and really I just want to build on that from now. So to let everybody experience the outdoors. So hopefully my book will be published next year.
Fantastic. I'll definitely make sure I'm buying that book then. I'll give it a good read.
Brilliant.
And just see if we cover all those things today, or there's more that we haven't yet covered. So that'd be really interesting. So, okay, so let's go back. So, you talked about that day you realized you wanted to go to Everest, and you realized actually that's a serious thing we need to plan. You and your the 3 of you and your friends. But it looked like you were the only one that saw that through. Did their lives get in the way of your friend? What kind of happened, and what made you say, absolutely no problem. You can stay here, but I'm absolutely going to do it. That is my dream.
So originally, yes, it was us 3, and we were calling ourselves the Summit Seekers originally, because we wanted to find out the next summit, the next one. Unfortunately, the other two sort of had new lives, they had new girlfriends, children were born, new jobs, and the two of them weren't really sort of aiming for the vision of Everest. You know, they wanted to get fit, physical, so that was sort of a different goal for them. So that's where we sort of parted ways, but in good way. And for me, I just had Everest in mind. You know, I thought I'll just do it solo. You know, I was so committed to it. I just thought, yep, get out and do it yourself.
So in terms of doing that then, how did you prepare for that? What was sort of your training? Because obviously you went to Russia and you've been to Africa. Is it other one, Argentina, South America? Is that it?
Yeah, South America.
So you've done those 4 summits already. Which one was your first one? How did you prepare for it? You know, what did you learn along the way?
So when I looked into sort of how to prepare for Mount Everest, there was lots of things that you needed, and you had to do over 6,000 meters. So once you had that certificate to prove that you've done over 6,000 meters, then you could do Everest. Because if you haven't done that, you can't go and do Everest. Plus, I needed to learn sort of how to adapt my body physically, because it's different air up there. You know, the high altitude means the air becomes a lot thinner. You can't just book it and go for it. You need a lot of training. And I thought about the timeline as well. I thought about the different things I had to achieve, because obviously I had to be really physically fit. And the hardest challenge, I think, was the 3 peaks in England, Scotland and Wales. So I did 3 in one day in 24 hours.
I'm actually doing that soon. That's actually on, I think it's end of September with my friends.
Good luck.
So I think the last time we did it was Snowdon, and now we're doing the 3 peaks. I need the luck, or do you think I'm going to be okay?
Oh, well, you play football, right?
I'm quite fit, relatively.
See, I wasn't at all at that time. So you've got your fitness, so I think you'll be all right.
Let's
it's the
hope
mentality
so.
you need.
But I'll let you know how I get on, the 3 of us.
Oh, good luck, good luck.
But sorry, no, carry on.
So I did that, 24 hours, the 3 peaks. And the hardest one was the Wales 3000 challenge. So we had to do 15 peaks in Wales. One of them was Snowdon. And then there were 14 others. So altogether 15, you had to do all of them in 24 hours. So I think it took me 19 hours. So when I did that, I knew, okay, ready for the next step now. And flew to Nepal. And I had my sort of over my 6,000 meters, my certificate. And I wanted to visit base camp, you know, that kind of real view of Everest.
And how did you see it? How did you feel right in front of you?
So really, when I first saw Everest, I did feel really emotional, because it's like seeing my dream in real life. You know, I know that one day I'm going to be having climbed that. So it felt really good, and it almost gave me that more motivation to sort of keep at it. So I visited base camp, went up 6,000 meters, got it, and I was feeling a little bit more confident, but I still wasn't ready for Everest. So I came back home and I went to Morocco. So there was 4,000 meters then, and that was like 18,000 miles. 75,000 miles in a few days. So yeah, it was a real challenge.
I think we've got some more comments here and more questions for you. So one from Ian. So I think he noticed that, you know, what sort of changed your mind about K2? So I think I remember you said before, nope, K2 is not on the cards for me, and you've changed your mind.
Yes, so it was at Camp 2 in Everest. That was really, really difficult. And, you know, it still sits with me today. The next day I'd sort of announced what had gone wrong, and it wasn't until I came home that spoke about this situation. You know, it wasn't my fault, and I was really able to reflect on it. And I thought, okay, actually, yeah, maybe I can do K2, because I've got plenty of time to plan it, think about it. So then I thought, you know, why not do it?
Yeah, it's a really good idea, isn't it? Because sometimes emotions can get in the way, can't it? You know, and that happens to everybody. So yeah, so I'm hoping that answers your question. So the next question is, you know, how is your finger now? You had frostbite, is that right?
Yes, they have recovered. It took me about 2 months. Yeah, so
Ooh.
the recovery, I really recovered fully only 2 weeks ago. So it's been a while. And, you know, it was about a month ago. It looked normal, but inside I still had this sort of like feeling of like pins and needles. So if I had any pressure, it felt really weird. And I was still feeling cold amazingly. So it was like kind of eating away at the inside. But yeah, 2 weeks ago that sort of went. So I'm fine now, fully recovered.
Brilliant. Okay, Zoe is asking, so do you have a qualification for mountaineering? And if so, how long did it take to kind of get those qualifications?
So no, I don't have a qualification. I go to the real mountains and I learn from that experience. If you want a qualification, you sort of have to go through education to become a teacher or a guide. And that's not really my goal before. It wasn't until after I'd done Everest that I sort of felt like, actually, yeah, I wouldn't mind being a mountain guide. And then more qualifications come with that.
Brilliant. I hope that answered your question, Zoe. So we're definitely going to keep an eye on your progress, becoming a guide and, you know, leading up the mountains. Fantastic. Maybe some of us could, you know, join you in the future. Who knows?
Oh, who knows? I look forward to it.
Okay, so Lisa has got a question. You know, so who is one person, you know, one it's sort of a person that's inspired by you? You know, they want to be the same as you. You know, would you support them? Do you know what sort of information would you give them to support them to achieve their goals?
Oh, I will always be happy to support whoever's really got that goal. You know, it doesn't even have to be mountains or Everest. You know, if you've got a goal, I'm more than happy to support, share my sort of raw experience, any tips or advice I've got. Yeah, 100%.
Fantastic. So anyway, I'd like to ask some more questions linked to mountaineering. You know, you talked about all of these mountains, and I'm just kind of thinking, sort of painting a picture. What is the reality of mountaineering? What sort of the preparation you have to go through, the mindset? What sort of steps do you need to take? You know, because obviously you've done some of the world's most dangerous mountains. You've managed to do that and been successful at it. So maybe there's things that we don't know that you do. So how do you prepare? What advice could you give us? Is it something you have to prepare in advance? What sort of information do you need to gather? And also being deaf, how do you, you know, connect to people and get that information that's required?
Absolutely. So people always sort of see my mountain pictures and they're always like, oh, well done. But they don't see what's behind that picture. All the hard work, the commitment that goes into it, you know, really the commitment, the training constantly. You know, you've got to eat well, train well every day. If you have a goal, Everest, for example, you have to commit for that year, for example. So it means you've got to put your job aside, you've got to give your all to it. So again, I think that requires mental strength and that ability to be on your own as well, because up the mountain, you're by yourself. You have to be prepared for that. And you have to be able to eat very basic food, simple food. And, you know, it's not luxury. So, for example, there's no toilets, no showers. You have to be prepared for all of that and train your mentality. You can't, you know, have a lovely shower every day. You'll be dirty. That is one of the things that you have to prepare your mentality, your brain for. Obviously, you know, there's lots of different mountains out there as well. So you've got to keep at your peak fitness. But, you know, it's a big commitment. So for years and years, you've got to sort of put in the effort to get what you need.
Okay, hold that thought. We've just got one more caller coming in. Hello. Hiya. Oh, you can see me. Perfect. Great.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I've got another question. I just come to my mind. Perfect. Okay. So I just thought of one more. You know, so of course, you know, you're based in the UK and you did lots of walking around the UK and, you know, do you think you'll set up something to walk in the UK, people to groups to come and walk with you?
Yeah, so I am planning to. but I do have to do my mountaineering leadership course first. So obviously I can do that, I can advertise it, but it's a risk to me and how I guide those people, making sure that they're doing it safely. So once I've got that, then yes, absolutely, I'd love to start guiding people who are keen to climb the mountains with me.
Yeah, because this is a lot of people are interested in. I know people want to follow you and follow what your footsteps, and we're just always waiting for you. But I thought I'd ask. I don't know if you pay them out for it to follow you, but up the mountains or whatever it may be. But we just love that sort of passion that you've got, and would love to follow that. Going outside and seeing something different through the forests and trees and mud. I love all of that, and I know people do. So it doesn't matter. Whoever you are, deaf, blind, doesn't matter.
Absolutely right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye. Okay, we've got some more questions in the comments. Okay, so one Violet. I think Violet has seen, sort of your Everest jacket. Is that right? Is that a big orange jacket you've got? It's got rips in it and a bit damaged. What's kind of your aim to? What are you going to do with that jacket? Is it going to go in a frame? Are you going to keep it, like a museum, for example? What's your plan with that?
Yes, I'm glad you asked, actually, because I've been doing a few talks recently, and it seems like my jacket is getting worse and worse, and a few rips on it. And this weekend's actually going to be my last sort of display of it, before it gets worse. So I think Scotland is going to be the last one, and I'm going to give it to the Manchester Museum.
Yeah, I just think, and hopefully that will then, be around while when we're gone. That is going to be so special to be able to keep that. What a way to treasure that. The first UK deaf man to achieve Everest, in 200, 300 years. I hope they look after it well in Manchester Museum, because that really is, you realise how a bit of impact that is. You've created a piece of history. A piece of you is there. That, do you feel like that?
I feel like, yes, I've achieved it, but it doesn't feel real yet, almost.
I'm telling you, it's real. I'm telling you now, this is real. That suit is going to be there for a long time. Why is it so hard for your brain to process what you've achieved?
Because my goal for Everest, it was a 10-year journey to get there. It feels like that's just gone now. My routine's gone. For 10 years I've been focusing for this. I almost kind of feel a little bit lost, like what's next? Obviously I came back home and my whole life has changed because, my name's just everywhere. And I've not really had time to sort of process that and reflecting on, wow, actually, yeah, I've achieved that. Life's just carried on. It's been busy. So I think give me a few months and maybe I will start going, wow, actually, yeah, that feels really real.
Yeah, but just to let you know, it's already been a few months already. Just
I know, I think it's like 2 months to recover, remember? So
okay,
since I've now recovered, I think I'll have 1 or 2 more months.
Okay. So we've got another comment from VJ talking about your backpack. What was the weight of your backpack? Because I know obviously you need to take a lot of things up there and be prepared. And do you need first aid kit in there? What sort of things do you need in your backpack? And did you feel like, oh my gosh, it's so heavy? What did that backpack look like for you?
So, no, the guides have the first aid kit. So water, food, the water bottle. And to be honest, it was quite heavy. But as you go higher, it becomes heavier. So, for example, you've got your oxygen, and it feels like double when you're up there. So because the air was quite light, obviously the less that's in it, you're almost like your muscles are warming up and it becomes more of a challenge. So I think including the rucksack, it was probably like 15, 17 kilograms, but it felt like probably 25. Yeah.
Ooh. Wow. So how do you say altitude? Altitude? Yeah, the altitude like this. Okay, altitude. Yeah. So is there any mountain, so out of all the mountains you've done, you noticed the altitude impact you quite a lot? It really affected how you your breathing, affected your body. Is there other mountains prior to Everest that happened?
Yeah, so when I started my sort of 7 peaks, the first one wasn't bad. It was the second one. It was like 4 weeks later. I did Kilimanjaro, and that really, really hit me because, you know, it's a poor country as well, and they're trying to get people through fast because obviously the more people they get through, the more money they get. So we almost like from the base right up to the top, it was 4 days, but it should be probably 10 days to give your body time to adapt to that. But we did it in 4 days. So that's when it really, really hit me. The altitude and the altitude sickness as well that you hit.
Oh, I think we've got someone coming in. Question: is it someone calling in? No, no, never mind. So another person has kind of asked the same sort of question. I think Kevin as well. You know, are you going to be a guide? Are you going to, you know, we're happy to pay you to guide us, please.
Yes, you know, part of my job. It will be part of my job, obviously. So yeah, I'll live from it.
So Vicky's asked. So the 14 Peaks challenge. What was that?
100% yes.
What is the 14 Peaks? Sorry, I don't know what it is.
So it's 7 summits. So in each different continent. So it's 14 peaks. So
8,000 meters.
It's going to be like 8,000 meters. There's K2 involved, and it's got 14 different mountains. So yeah, 18,000 meters.
So Hannah, how have you done so far? Oh, 1, and there's 13 more to go. Whoa. So Kevin said, you know, you never know. Potentially in the future, you could have a knighthood, maybe, you know, for your amazing achievement that you've had, and a big well done to you for what you've contributed.
Thank you. I mean, it's definitely not something I'm aiming for. Obviously, if it happens, I'd be very grateful for it.
But do you have a, you know, that would be nice, of course, have a dream, something like that, right?
Yeah, like I said, you know, I'm just a normal person, though. I'm the same as you, same as everyone else. I'm just going through life, you know. If that's something they did offer me, obviously that would be an added bonus. It'd be great.
So just, you know, let you know, if any questions linked to Everest that, you know, are really quite in depth, we're not going to talk about those today. But if you've got any other things that's linked to his mountaineering, in his lifestyle, what sort of, you know, we can't talk about too much into depth of Everest, but any other questions are more than welcome. So Rachel was asked, so which mountain in the UK do you think is the hardest one? But I think they're all easy for you now you've completed Everest, right?
Obviously.
Yeah, to be honest, they are.
I mean, now they would all be easy. I think you know, it's the grade 1 or 2, it's the scrambles really that's the hardest.
And I think we've got a caller coming in. Hello, hiya, hello. Hi, Michael. So my name is Glenn, and this is my sign name. Can you see me? Can you see me clearly? Yeah. So I'm deafblind myself, and recently, I climbed a mountain myself in Spain, and no one helped me. I managed to do it all by myself. So I kind of thought to myself, you know what? You can do it. I can do it. You know, and I had the dream. I felt like, you know what? I can do it. So I did. So I think it was only 500. I think it's only around 500 meters. You know, but I thought, but it was hot, as you can imagine, in Spain. The sun was beaming down. But I did think of you as I got to the top. I thought, you know what? You went to the top. You know, what was the number again?
So Everest is 18,400
meters.
8,000 meters.
Yeah, and I thought, wow. And I was on the top of the one in Spain. I thought that's amazing.
But you still achieved it. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I was really lucky. I managed to hold, you know, a kind of stick. I had my stick, and I managed to hold, and I felt, and I could feel it, the string. So it was perfect. I had the right foot when I remember the stones were really tricky, to be fair, but I managed it and I got there. In Bali, yeah. Did you done Bali? Yeah. Bali, yeah. So there's a mountain there. Have you heard of that one before? But it's at night time, I think. I think you climb it at night. And obviously it's difficult for me to see in the dark, so that'd be a tricky one for me. So I think actually it's probably not. I'd have to have a guide, But I said no, I want to do it. I want to do the same. I'm the same as everybody else. I can do it. I don't need a guide. I don't want them to think, deaf blind people can't. I can. I'll get, and got to the top, and really absolutely amazing.
So interestingly, climbing Everest, we were climbing in the dark sometimes, because actually climbing in the dark is easier to walk on the frost. But obviously I'm deaf and people wearing head torches.
Yeah,
so when people looked at me
true.
to communicate, it was like I was blinded. So yeah, I can imagine how difficult it is.
Yeah, it's the same. That narrow vision in the dark with the light, it's really difficult. Communication breakdown. It was really hard. Had to persevere. Got to the top, and it was absolutely worth it. Yeah, but anyway, But how's your fingers? I know they were really good frostbite, right?
Yep. It was this one and this one. I had stage 3. I almost went black. So I almost had to have it chopped off. But in terms of how that happened, I'll do,
Yeah,
talk
can you
about
see this here on my finger? Yes, I saw it. I thought, you know what? Gosh, Michael's frostbite is even worse. I can't complain about this small mark on my finger. I thought it's nothing in comparison. You've had yours for 3 months, so. So my last question, really, you kind of really have inspired me, I think. And you got to the top. And I just feel, how did you feel really when you absolutely reached the summit? What did you feel like?
Really, when I reached that summit, I was thinking, wow. And I was really only halfway because I had to go down again. And I was still thinking, like, oh, I've not done it yet because it still doesn't feel real. I've got a huge milestone that I've achieved. The first deaf person in Europe to achieve Everest.
Yeah,
of course,
and emotional as well, I'm sure. Did you cry? Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I thought to myself, I can't imagine what it must have felt like for you. How it felt good for me, and I thought what it must have been like for you was amazing. But I'd like to see your presentation. Yeah, I think I'm seeing you in October at Heath School. Is that right? Yeah.
See you there. Bye. How do I go off?
Thank you. Yeah, that's really interesting. Deaf and blind, and he's still, persevering, determined enough to get there. Well done, you. Fantastic. Well, more questions. Okay. I think we've got about 30 minutes left. So I just want to make sure that I've covered all the things I want to ask you, Michael, before you go. So one of the questions is, you were talking about passing your suit to Manchester Museum. If people want to visit and see it, when will it be there? Do you know?
So I think I'll probably keep it for a year because, I feel that emotional connection to it, sentimental. So probably next year, once the book's published, then yeah, I'll give it to them.
Brilliant. Okay, so Lisa says that she did Scafell Pike in the Lake District, and altogether it took her 9 hours. What was your time for Scafell Pike?
Wow, well done in 9 hours. The first time I did it, I think 7, but probably now 1.5.
Sorry, 1.5 hours?
Yeah, just up and back. Snowdon, how long did it take you?
Hold on a minute, let me just let you know. We had a bad start, okay? The car park wasn't great. We chose the wrong one. It was the wrong starting point.
So, once we got on the track and to the peak, 5-6 hours.
So yeah, same for me the first time. I think 7 hours total. So I'm impressed. You probably beat me.
Yeah, without the bad start, I've taken that off, to be fair. So altogether, 7 hours.
So at that time, my first time, probably 7 hours. Now I can go up and down in 1 hour and 20.
I'm sorry, but that is absolutely not normal.
I think maybe I'm robot.
That is like a peak athlete, right? You must be at your peak. So if I compare it to football and looks at professionals, you must be a professional mountaineer, like that, in terms of your physical condition.
Because you've got to aim for Everest, you've got to be prepared for this. So it took me years and years and years of training to get to that level, obviously.
1 hour and a half. Honestly, I can't believe it. I'm a little bit mind blown, to be honest. I mean, that's incredible. Wow. Yeah, well, hope you at home are the same. Can you believe that? 1 hour and 30 minutes. Wow. Okay, so we've got one more question. So it says that you're an absolute huge inspiration to the deaf community and the world. And, because of your determination and your success, you've given so many deaf people the confidence to believe, that we can achieve anything, whatever we want to set our mind to. So a real huge thank you to you for breaking barriers and changing people's perceptions. And please keep proving people wrong, keep being yourself, and keep inspiring everybody.
Wow. Thank you so much for your lovely message. And hopefully, I'd love to share that positivity to lots of others to know that they can achieve anything. So thank you.
Okay, so Sylvia is asking, you've done 4 out of 7, but do you think you're going to complete all 7 summits?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I started the 7 summits just last year. And really, I could have started a long time ago, but I held on to that until I'd booked Everest officially. And I sort of started that 7 summits then. Now, partly that's because my goal was to be the fastest deaf to complete all 7 summits in the world.
Wow. Okay. So what is the timeline for that then? What is the current record at the moment? How long is that?
So far, there's not a deaf record to complete all 7, but I do know that there's 2 deaf people in America who have done 6 out of 7. And I think that was like 8 years or something, but I've done 4 in 12 months. So hopefully if I can do it in under 3 years, then I'll be the fastest deaf in the world. So even if they complete it, I'll still be a little bit faster. So that's my goal.
I didn't even realise. I didn't know you did 4 in 12-month periods. That's crazy. So tell me then, how do you fund that? Because I think I realised before, that actually it's really expensive, and I didn't realise that until I did more research into it. So how do you fund that? And how do you plan your life around your family, your children, and everything else that comes along with it?
Really, yeah, it's been a bit crazy because it's cost me 93,000 so far. And people don't realise just how much commitment that takes to continually look for sponsors, for fundraising. And I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who supported me. I've taken personal loans out, got myself into debt. But altogether, I think, the first sort of 7 summits probably cost me it will cost me 250,000 to complete all of it. So, really, you've got to be prepared to work hard to promote yourself to the companies that are going to sponsor you to do it, and people that believe in me, because you've got to believe in yourself that you can do it.
Wow, it just goes to show though, that you're going to find a way. Don't give up, keep going.
Exactly. Because if you want to aim for Everest, you've got to show that you're not going to give up, you're not going to quit. There will always be barriers there, there will always be challenges, but you've got to keep going. You've got to keep fighting for it. And look at it, I've achieved my dream, but I'm still persisting. I'm not giving up on that.
Yeah, linked to that, we talked about mindset before. So is there anything specific or a certain strategy that you may have that you feel, when you're feeling low and you think, oh my God, I actually can't do it. what do you say to yourself? What is it that you give yourself to allow you to break through that? What sort of strategy? Because obviously we all have different ways of thinking, but I'm, wondering about you and your mindset. What strategy do you have?
So yeah, all the time, when I'm up the mountains, when I'm at the summit, it always reminds me, actually this is not forever. Once you've finished it, you just come back home and the mountain's still going to be there. So, I'm not a person who's going to quit easily. And obviously my training from the strength training means that actually you can keep going and you can get to the summit, because you need that mental strength. It's easy to quit, but if you do, it means I wouldn't have achieved my dream of doing Everest. You have suffering and there's times when you want to give up, but you've got to keep your mind focused on what you want. You've got to keep telling yourself you can do this, not, do it another time. It doesn't work that way. You've got to be fully committed to your dream, just step by step.
Yeah, that's really, really powerful. Thank you. And one thing you said about you're always back home, but that's not reality, isn't it? Unfortunately for everybody, there have been deaths, unfortunately, mountaineering. So just thinking about that thought about coming home, how do you change your mindset? That is dangerous. The mountain is dangerous. That's going to be a dangerous journey. Anything could happen. An avalanche. You name it. Have you ever allowed those thoughts to enter your mind?
Yeah, of course. And I think there's mountaineering world where lots of people are passionate about it. There is risks, there's snowfall, there's lots of weather changes, there's lots of risk there. But obviously safety always comes first. So, for example, if you're ill and, it's being really serious, you have to be able to accept that actually I can come back down again. I can't control the weather. It's out of my control. So that's a risk. But if you want it, you've sometimes just got to take those risks.
You're much braver than me, Michael. That's what I have to say. Those risks, what they are, and you don't seem overly put off by them.
To be honest, I have no fear about that. You'll probably laugh that I have one fear, and that's spiders.
There's one there, isn't there?
Nice try. But it's weird, heights, the snowfall, the avalanche. Oh, it's not really something that really I'm fearful of. I feel like I've got that sort of will inside me to carry on.
I'm just thinking, okay, if I was like you, sometimes you have to kind of lie to yourself, it's okay, it's going to be fine, Do you do that often? Is that something you do?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. But you have to be talking to yourself, give myself that positivity.
Yeah, I suppose it's like a spiritual feeling, like I'm destined for this. I'm destined to do Everest. I'm going to be okay. Do you sort of talk like that to yourself?
Yeah, in my head, I talk to myself a lot when I'm on the mountain as well. And when you're climbing, obviously, when you're on your own, there's lots of other hearing people who maybe are talking to each other, but I've got to have that narrative in my head.
Yeah, maybe this is a silly question, but do you follow your gut with sort of the steps that you've been making to climb? I'm trying to imagine what this is like for you. Do you follow a time and think, I need to stop now? Or do you think, no, my gut's telling me to keep going? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, so I think one example with Everest, I got food poisoning, and I think everyone saw that video.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
So that was one example where I thought, actually, I've got to put my life first. It was serious. I was ill, and it was like, actually, no, I need to take time out, get back to base camp. And so that was like trusting your instinct. And I did think at that time, I'm not going to make it to the top. I have to recover. So it was when I was recovering that I then thought, actually, no, I can do it, because most of the time on different mountains, I think, actually, no, I can achieve it. But in Kilimanjaro, I had that altitude sickness. I think I was like 300 meters left. And again, that time I had a real dilemma, because I thought, oh, that's not that far. But actually, on a mountain, that is far. Because you've got that high altitude as well, it means it takes you a long time. So, in my mind, I thought, actually, no, I'm going to press on. It's better to get to the top and then go back down, rather than feel like, oh, I was so close and I should have carried on. I didn't want that regret. I was thinking, actually, no, it's just there. I just wanted to finish it off. So I thought that suffering is not going to go on forever. Get to the top, get back home, then recover.
Wow. I'm just wondering then, you're talking about when you go back home, how do your family feel? Your children, your partner, is it your partner, wife? Fiance. Okay, fiance. So how's your fiance feeling knowing that you're going up there, you're taking those risks and they're risking your life? Because obviously, it's your hobby, they know it's your dream and your passion. They can see that, but they know there's risks involved. How do they, I suppose, of course they're going to support you, absolutely. But at the same time, how do they manage that? Or what are their feelings with you risking your life?
So, 10 years ago, when I first said, that's it, I'm going to Everest, nobody believed me and everyone laughed at me. They thought I was, talking rubbish. And even my partner didn't believe me at the time. And I said I was going to do it. She said, yeah, go on then, go on. Because she thought I was talking rubbish. And then I thought, actually, no, I'm training, I'm committed. And it was through that she sort of thought, actually, no, he's serious about this. He's actually doing the training, but it's too late. I've already said go for it. So it wasn't until later, to sort of see how serious I was. Because it wasn't like, oh, I'll book it for next year and just go, put my life at risk. It was that I was training myself well. And I think my partner saw that I was committed and that I was committed to it safely so that she could put her trust in me. And that's what my dream was. So, over the years, I think I got that support from her because she saw how much I wanted it, to achieve my dream and showed that commitment consistently. So I think really through that, she believed in it as well.
What about your children? Do they fully understand yet what you do? If you, for example, I'm going to go and climb Everest, and do they think it's like the same as Snowdon? Or Dad will be fine, or do you explain to them that the dangers in the different mountains? How do you communicate that with your children?
So when I said I was going to Everest, I don't think they thought, what is it? I explained it that it was the highest mountain in the world, but I didn't sort of go into depth about the risk of dying or anything like that. I wouldn't put that on my children because I don't want them to be really emotional.
I understand that, yeah.
But I did say, I was obviously be missing for 2 months. So I did explain and reassure them, and they sort of understood that I was going for 2 months to do Everest. But I don't think they really understood what that involved, that maybe I wouldn't come back home. They don't sort of see that yet because they're too young to understand that.
Yeah, I think I saw your video when you first came back. You landed in Manchester Airport and your 2 children were over the moon to see you. And it really gave me goosebumps to see that. I thought it was wonderful. So I kind of thought for them, when they arrive at the airport and they see a lot of people there, they've come to see you, they've come to see their dad. So do you think they realised then, what Dad's achieved? That's not a normal achievement, that it's really special. Did they talk to you about that? Why is there so many people here coming to see my dad? Or, what was that? Did they talk about that?
Yes, I think when they realised that I'd been that highest mountain in the world and I was the first deaf person in Europe, their school talked about me as well. So they were sort of telling the children about, updates about what I was doing. So I think through education, they sort of realised, wow, that is quite unique. They sort of saw that I was first deaf person in Europe. And I think through that, they sort of became really proud. They were telling all their friends, oh, my daddy's in Mount Everest.
I'm laughing because I was just thinking that, because if I was them, do you know who my dad is? Michael Woods. That's what I'd be telling them. But really, exactly. That is, it's so impressive because 11 years ago, you changed for your children. And now 11 years later, they're so proud of you and who you've become. But that really is so powerful.
And, I feel like I've actually inspired them, especially my son who's deaf, and I give him someone to look up to and know that he can achieve his dreams. There's no excuse, there's nothing stopping us. He sees actually, yeah, Daddy can achieve it, I can. And that pride, I hope that carries on with him. So
that's really beautiful. Really is a beautiful comment. I know we can't talk about Everest too much, but there is this one question I want to ask. So, you reach the summit and have a photograph of that. At that time, that photograph was taken, you realised my 10-year dream had been successful. How did you feel when you reached the summit?
So when I reached the summit, it was so emotional because it's like you say, it was a 10-year journey. Nobody believed me at the start. And I felt like once I got there, I was like, I've proved them all wrong. And at the same time, I wasn't sort of overly excited because I say that's halfway. People think, oh, well done, you've reached the top. But I didn't see that as success yet. I still had to get down to base camp, and that was successful. So, yeah, the 7 weeks I was there and I felt like I'd achieved it. But the first thing, I just wanted to get back home and see my kids. I'd been 2 months without them and I just missed them so much. I didn't even have anyone to sign with, communicate. So it wasn't until I sort of came back home that I felt so good.
That's absolutely understandable. Because I know you're saying obviously you get to the peak and that's halfway. It's just kind of like a general question. What do you feel like is the most difficult, going up or coming down?
So it's the same for all the mountains. Going up is always easier and down is actually harder.
Wow, interesting. Okay. Let's have a look at a bit more of the comments. So I think we've got roughly 15 minutes left. So just letting everyone know, you've got 15 minutes. So if there's a few more callers, please, we can ask the questions to Michael for the last 15 minutes. There's so many comments. Hold on, I'm just going to pick one. Okay, so there's the Jennifer saying that your journey really has inspired everybody. I'm glad your fingers have improved, but to reach Mount Everest, what is it you need to do? To achieve that dream.
Thank you very much.
So Zoe has said, obviously, do you follow the 2 US mountaineers? Because I know obviously they had a really terrible time at K2. It's quite sad, but they're okay. I'm just, do you follow them, their journey? And do you follow other deaf mountaineers?
Yes, obviously I'm a mountaineer myself, so I try to connect with all of the deaf mountaineers out there, sort of build a bit of network, support each other. And the 2 in America, really good. We message each other and support. Obviously, people don't sort of see that publicly. But the 2 deaf people in America, huge kudos to them for achieving K2. Unfortunately, that was the weather that meant that they couldn't carry on. So they had to sort of call it a day and go back down. So it was really unfortunate. But there was a famous mountain in the 14 Peaks that unfortunately, we couldn't have done it because there was an avalanche there. So that unfortunately killed 10 people. But
yeah, I saw that in the news. It's extremely sad. I think one of the most successful mountaineers.
Niral, I think his name was. So he'd done it 57,000 meters, and each of the peaks were sort of 15,000. But he'd done it so many times.
And how many have you done out of those 14? One, is it, Michael? Just the
nearly
one?
Nearly two.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to give encouragement.
I'm still proud of my
encouragement.
One. Don't worry.
Motivation and encouragement is what that was. Okay, so another question for you from Kevin. So when you obviously did Everest, did you manage to build relationships with the people who went through that journey with you? Are you allowed to talk if you're still in contact with them? And sort of how did you cope with that sort of communication? Yeah, I think it's your group, isn't it, with Everest?
Yes, I think there was 15 of us or 16 in the group. So it's only 4 of us actually made it to the top. So the rest pulled out because they either weren't fit enough or, they couldn't carry on because of the altitude, or they got altitude sickness. There's quite a few who sort of dropped out and called it a day. So it's only 4 of us that actually made it to the top. But yeah, we're still in contact and we still chat, going on other mountains. We set up sort of WhatsApp groups, and it's a good excuse to connect with people. So I've got 4 different groups from Russia, from South America, and it's Africa as well. So, and Asia. So
do you feel that there's a really strong mountaineering community? Is that something that's really positive?
Definitely. So I think the mountaineering community is really respectful as well, and I'm sure you see it for yourself when you go to Snowdon. There'll be people really lovely as they go past. It's a different community, like it's not got this sort of attitude where it's out for yourself. They're really respectful.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. That is a good point. So there's a good question here from Phil. That's one of my friends actually who I did Snowdon with. And he'd like to ask, if you could tell us one lesson that impacted you and you learned from climbing Everest, that you could take with you every day of your life, what would that lesson be?
Oh, I like that question. So yeah, well done. You've done Snowdon with Matt.
We've got the 3 peaks coming up.
Oh
as well.
Yeah, good luck with that. So I learned a lot of lessons. One was just never give up. Keep that in your mind, because that was my dream. That was my goal. And I wanted to sort of keep that, never give up. So that's it. That's my lesson.
Wonderful. That's a beautiful lesson. Thank you. So another one from Violet. So, can you climb Everest at any time, January, February, or it must be specific month it was best? What works well?
No, so only for 3 months in May can you get to the summer, because you need your body to adapt to those sort of conditions. When you're over 8,000 meters, that's when you get to that sort of high zone, and your body needs to really adapt to that. So there's a strong wind up there as well, and it's across Everest. So there's a real specific time in May when the wind goes higher, and you've got time to make it up to the peak before the wind comes back down again. And so the wind goes back down to Tibet. So it's mainly the wind that's the problem. So it's really May each year when people go, because the wind's lower and you can make it up. But it's when that wind then comes back down the mountain that.
Well, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. So that's just made me think actually of a next question. How do you learn about the risks and everything associated? Did you find that information out yourself via research, or was it through connections?
Yeah, through my journey. So I learned little bits along the way. I read a lot, sort of educate myself, and I had to learn through sort of researching. So it was mostly from that. And obviously I went to different peaks, different summits, and learned along the way.
So do you thought there needs to be more information in BSL for mountaineering? Because for me, right at this moment in time, I can't think of a single resource that I can find information about this topic in BSL.
Yeah, that's my view, to change that really, because I want other climbers who are aiming to Everest, I want that to be accessible in BSL, because there might be a lot of deaf people that want to start climbing, but they might be frightened because it's not accessible. So again, from Everest, I think that, I've got that power to show people that actually things can be accessible. So I'm currently working with the British Mountaineering Council. So hopefully we're fighting to change things so that companies do have the information accessible in BSL. That's my vision.
Wow, that sounds good. I hope that's another dream of yours to achieve. Fantastic. So obviously, we're talking about, BSL. And I just thought, before you were signing on social media, and then every now and again it pops up international signing. Why does that come up? International sign language?
Because obviously I'm up Everest. It was only 10% of British people. So 90% are other nationalities. So, I had to sort of make those 2 different videos to make sure that I was accessible as well, because every time I was in BSL, I just get messages complaining because they don't understand me. So I had to sort of adapt to this international sign, can't win really.
I think you said you're still learning international though, is that right? How's that going?
I'm still learning. Good start. I've made a good start.
Yeah, I can see you're very clear. International's not, easy. It's not official language. It's a lot of borrowing, isn't it, from other sign languages?
Much more visual.
But good luck in your journey in learning international sign language. Okay, so the last question is from Kevin. And it says it's been so interesting to watch your story, to hear about your passions, and how much you love climbing and hiking. So now it's your favorite hobby. If you took that away, what would then become your next second favorite hobby?
So I've started playing golf, and I've started to become a little bit hooked on that. So that's my distraction from mountaineering, to be honest. So I thought, actually, no, I'm going to have to stop playing golf because I didn't want it to be distracted. I thought, no, I've got to get Everest out of the way. So maybe in future I'll get into golf again.
So when was the last time you played golf?
3 years ago.
So that's it. Maybe you give yourself one day. All the calls on hold. Go onto the field. That's it. And then one day it will hit you. Maybe that's it. Your next goal. I think we've got 5 minutes left. I've got some quick fire questions, if that's okay. Okay, so far, what is your favourite mountain?
Everest.
And your favourite country that you visited?
Russia. So when I was driving through the border, that was my favourite in Georgia.
Okay, so your most memorable sunrise, when you looked at it and you thought, wow, beautiful.
Oh, definitely. Most recently on Everest, because obviously it's the highest mountain. So it's like the sun hits it first. It's beautiful.
Oh, amazing. Are you a tea or coffee person?
Coffee. Because I actually hate coffee. But one of my friends started making me drink
that's
coffee
it. Now
recently.
You're hooked on the coffee. Okay, sunrise or sunset?
Oh, both.
Nope, got to pick one, I'm afraid.
Sunset.
Okay, what is there one place that you've been that everyone watching should go to visit? Of course, Everest is a bit different, but I'm talking about for all of us, somewhere we can go that's achievable.
Morocco, definitely. It's beautiful. The Atlas Mountains.
Atlas, is that right?
Yeah, they're the Atlas mountain range. There's one which is Tubial, and I went there. It was really hot, but you get to camp in the desert. It's gorgeous, and anyone can do it. Just a good starting point.
So there you go, everybody. Maybe you could book Morocco soon. But to be honest with you, I think they're ready for you to get your leadership certificate, and we'll all come and follow you wherever you may go.
Yeah,
I think that's it. I think that is the reality. Okay, what's the biggest lesson you've learned? So not necessarily from Everest, but from your journey of your life. What is the biggest lesson?
Oh, that's a hard one.
What's the first thing that maybe comes to your mind?
To sort of keep that survival mentality, keep true to your decisions. And when you're on the mountains, you can't be playing around in your mind. You've got to think clearly. So it's a good thing to make sure that you've made that decision. You've got to get up and get down. You've got to follow your gut and listen to your body.
Yeah, so to speak, trusting yourself, isn't it? Having trust in what you know.
Yeah.
Okay, what's still on your list?
For the mountains?
Anything.
I've booked onto the marathon next year.
So, Lena, I'm so disappointed because I was supposed to do the London Marathon, I think this year. But unfortunately, it clashed at the same time as the Deaf Champions League. So it was the same weekend and I couldn't believe it. So I thought, could I do it on Sunday?
Yeah.
I could run on the Sunday. Monday, quickly fly to Turkey. And I thought, you know what? I'm lying to myself. I cannot do that. So I had to give up my spot on the London Marathon this year. But I do want to do it. It's really annoying. But really good luck to you. Started training or not yet?
Yes, I start training in September. And I need the luck, to be honest, because it's a completely different sport from mountaineering. Completely different.
Okay, so how are you starting to train for the marathon? and obviously mountaineering alongside that, or are you going to do the marathon first and mountaineering later? What sort of your plan look like?
So I've started with my 5K, kind of warm up. And at the same time, I can do that alongside mountaineering here in Britain. Maybe 1 or 2 a week to sort of build up my strength. But I think the marathon is going to benefit the mountaineering, especially for K2. Obviously, it's more dangerous. You need more strength in your body. So I think the marathon is going to help me sort of build that core strength and strengthen up my legs as well, which is still needed. So yeah, hopefully it should help me towards K2. That's why I've sort of booked myself on. I thought it'll help me get stronger.
Fantastic. Well, good luck with that, and I hope it's a really fantastic time for you. I hope you enjoy it. Do you have a time in mind that you want to achieve?
I want to say the time, but I'm going to finish it first.
Come on, no, it's better to tell us all now. Tell us the time now, and we'll make sure you do it. It's the pressure's on. We're all watching.
But if I say it, the pressure is on.
So the pressure will make you do it, right? That's it.
So 4 hours.
You've heard it here, everybody. 4 hours. So we'll see. Is it April next year? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, April 2027. Good luck.
Thank you.
So I think this is going to be the last comment, and I'll have one more question from me, and then we'll bring it to a close. Okay, so Violet said, we've really, really enjoyed watching your journey and seeing your story so far, and we really can't wait to give you a big hug, and you are an absolute hero.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely to hear.
You've had so much praise, throughout this journey and through this conversation. And maybe you don't see it in yourself, but you are a huge, huge inspiration and a fantastic role model. And we've said this before, you're a legacy, and your legacy is going to last forever. No one can take that away from you. And really, I just want to reinforce that. So linked to that, what is the last message for the audience? It can be anything, please feel free.
If you want to achieve your goal, like mine was to get to Everest, just don't give up. You can do it. You can achieve anything you want to. Just put your mind to it. Keep your goal in mind and don't give up. Just keep going. And remember, the barriers are always going to be there, and there's always going to be a way around them so you can achieve what you want.
Once again, another powerful message. But again, Michael, thank you so much for coming. Our first episode of The Valve.
And thank you for having me here. I really, really enjoyed the discussion. Thank you.
So every month there's going to be a different session. So thank you for being our first. I really, really hope you enjoyed watching it at home. Michael was the first time he's been live with us. It's just, been a lovely, natural conversation. And I hope he's inspired you all. And soon, remember what he's achieved. Just remember, don't think, I can't do it. Think about what he's achieved. It's there. And he's going to be in, history forever. But thank you again for all you calling in, all your comments, the questions you've given, Michael. And please do, keep looking at our social media for more Valve episodes as they come. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.